Hi, how you doing, and welcome back to a video on the channel. What we have for you today is an updated draft video, but we've actually got two draft teams, both of which I'm considering. So the first one is one from the previous video that I've just tinkered about a little bit and made a few changes with, and then another one which has Haaland in, because a lot of people in the comments were sort of saying that I need to get Haaland in if I want to be successful, and I'm still 50-50 on that, but I take those points on board. It is good to have all the discussions, so if you are new to the channel, please do like and subscribe to keep up to speed with all the videos this season. We did finish 25k overall in FPL last season, and you know, all these opinions are great. We all like to think we know what we're talking about, but in reality we're all still guessing, aren't we? So otherwise we'd finish top 5k in FPL every season. So it's great to have those opinions and discussions. Let's take a look at the first team. So this is the team that I've been working with so far this season, and it's not the finished article, but we have made a couple of changes. We've taken out Garnacho and Mateta, and we've brought in Chris Wood and Phil Foden. Now this team overall has an 88% rating on Fantasy Football Hub. Shout out to them. If you've not gone on their website yet, go get your team rated for free. Great website, and it does have a team value of 100 million. So the pluses I've still got are there's no real rotation risks. So my starting 11, they're all probably going to play. I don't really see anyone on there who's not going to, at least start, if not get 90 minutes week in, week out. And I've got a question of, does Foden cover Haaland? So a lot of people are saying you should get Haaland in. Haaland's actually owned by less than half of teams at the moment, so there's quite a lot of people who don't have Haaland in. And could you save 5.5 million and get Foden in and kind of cover those points a little bit? Foden did actually outscore Haaland last season, so whilst it's not a given that he'll do it again, it is a possibility. So could that happen? Is Foden, worth Haaland plus 5.5 million? Be interested to know what you think. Now the downsides is there's no Haaland or Salah, and it actually makes it difficult to move to Haaland or Salah as well, because I don't have any money in the bank. I'd be looking, if I wanted to get Haaland in, I'll be looking at making at least 3 transfers in order to make that happen, because of just the money that I would need elsewhere. Maybe I could get it done in 2. I could still get Salah done in 2, but it's not something that I'd be considering, because if I did want Haaland or Salah, I'd probably get them from the get-go. Like if Haaland goes and scores 3 in his first 2 games, I'm not going to be surprised by that. It's not that I don't think he's going to score. It's just that, if you do have Haaland in and he doesn't score, could you recreate those points elsewhere, or is your team a bit thinly spread? So it's really, do you want a more balanced team, or do you want to put more of your eggs in that one basket? So let's take a look at team number 2, and there are quite a few changes because we've had to look at saving money elsewhere in the team. And the main changes we've had to start with are in defence. So I've actually upgraded Pickford to Raya. And the reason I was able to do that was because I downgraded Saliba to Mykolenko. So I've actually saved 1.5 million doing Saliba to Mykolenko. I've actually only spent 0.5 million to upgrade from Pickford to Raya, and it's still given me a way into both Arsenal and Everton's defence, both of which I think are going to be really good defences this year. So because we've got Haaland in, we've had to make some cuts, but I do think, in terms of a combination of Pickford and Saliba, Raya and Mykolenko, I don't really think there's too many differences in points there overall. I've also had to downgrade Pedro Porro to Anderson. Now, Spurs players are the first players to go when I'm looking at saving money, because I've had Spurs players in, like many of you will have done, over the last couple of seasons, and they are a nightmare when you're relying on them to score you points. Like if you're sort of really hoping Son scores and Spurs are just so inconsistent as a team, it is just really difficult to sort of rely on them. So an easy switch to save $1 million was Pedro Porro to Anderson at Crystal Palace. Now Palace do have Brentford, West Ham, Chelsea and Leicester in their first 4 games. They're decent games, and Palace did finish the season really strong, and there is a case for saying a team that finishes the season strong could start the next season strong. We're still waiting to see whether they sell a couple of their players or not, but Anderson is someone who will be at the heart of that defence and will be playing week in, week out no matter what. Now, I've kept Gvardiol. I do think there's value in having, players from good teams in your defence, because I know the bonus point system has changed, and I know defenders are less likely to get bonus points, but you're not really getting defenders in for bonus points. You're getting them in for ideally clean sheets, although there was 60, I think, less clean sheets across the Premier League last season. But you're also getting them in for the potential attacking returns, which Gvardiol does have in abundance. You would say him and Trent are probably the best defenders, maybe Ben White, for attacking returns. Now, cutting down the money in defence is easy because whilst I'm not saving too much overall, clean sheets were quite rare last season, so you'd like to think that would probably be the same again this season if you are looking at going a little bit cheaper at the back line. Now, midfield, we've taken Son out for Garnacho. Now, Garnacho was in our previous team last video, and I do think he's very underrated as an FPL option. At 6.5 million, it's a bit of an awkward price point, but it is an enabler in order for you to get in other players elsewhere in your team. And to be 3.5 million cheaper than Son, I think is a good option. I think he'll play 90 minutes for Man United very consistently, and as we saw at the weekend, he does have attacking returns in him. Man United do have a bit of a mixed run of fixtures, but I think it's good enough to sort of consider him moving forward. Now, Phil Foden I've kept in. Do I think that's overkill, having Haaland and Phil Foden in my team? Not necessarily, because let's say everyone has Haaland in the team. Well, how are you going to get an edge on those players who have Haaland in? Because if he scores, you all have the same amount of points. The way you do that is you'd sort of hedge your bets and you'd get in another Man City player who, if Haaland does blank, you'd like to think Foden would get an attacking return or two, maybe a goal and an assist for Man City, and then you would gain rank on those players like that. So I think having Foden in there is okay. Triple Man City is not abnormal because they're the best team in the league on paper. So I'd be interested to know what you think about having two Man City attacking options in your team. Up front, I've had to go with João Pedro. Now, I'm not massively keen on Brighton at all. I think, for me, they've got tough fixtures. I do need a player who will play because, as we've just seen, my bench is quite thin. And I know some people, whilst we're on the topic of bench players, my bench is always going to be weak. That's just how I play FPL. I don't really see the point in having players on your bench who are, if you've got a player on your bench who's a good player, well, surely they should be in your starting lineup. I think it creates more selection headaches. And how many times in your FPL season each week do players score 1 or 2 points? You must have about 4, 5, sometimes even 6 players in your starting 11 who score you 1 or 2 points. So if I've got a player coming off my bench that's needed in an emergency who's scoring 1 or 2 points, I'm okay with that because that's kind of the average points that you would get from a player on your bench. And like I said, if you player on your bench is going to score you a lot of points and you think that's going to happen, you probably should put them in your starting 11 as it is. So João Pedro is a big question mark for me. Overall, the team rating is 90%, which is the highest rating we've had so far overall, but only by 1 or 2%. The team value is still 100 million. Now, I'm not too fussed about that because we've got the most expensive player in the game in Haaland. If I did want to move off him, I could save a load of money there and invest it quite easily. So I guess you'd rather have him than not have him at the start of the season. The strengths are I'm less likely to get left behind. I've been in those positions a couple of seasons ago where I didn't have Haaland in and he had a hat-trick and 2 assists in the same game. And it was basically season over at that point. It was quite early on in the season as well. And you're thinking, how on earth am I going to make up 40, 50 points on everyone else, at this point in time? And it was very soul-destroying. But I guess that's part of the risk that you take. So I'm very aware of the risks of not having Haaland in. It's not something that I would sort of not have him in without considering. And the strength is it does have Haaland in it, which is what a lot of people in the comments seemed to want last time. So I'll be interested to see what you think is better, this team or the team we showed before. The weaknesses is at what stage would you take Haaland out? Would you always have him in no matter what? Or what if he blanked 3 games in a row and the rest of your team, there's not enough there to cover it? I think, would you have him in no matter what, and would you take that risk? Because once you've got him in, if you're not going to have him in all season, at what stage you take him out and he's taking up so much of your transfer budget, it's a detriment to the rest of your team. So if I had this team, I probably would, after the Ipswich game, take Haaland out, upgrade to Watkins and invest the money elsewhere. Maybe even pad the bench out, you never know. Have a better 12-man option just in case. That would be my plan moving forward. And I do think it's worth considering if you are getting in someone like Haaland or Salah, is there a point where you would move away from them? So I'll be really interested to know what you think. Maybe you think neither team is that great. In which case, like, it'd be really interesting to see your teams or suggestions of how you would improve it. You know, it's really easy to sort of say get Haaland in. It's like, but it kind of has an impact on elsewhere. So the permutations are really quite interesting. The price points for each player is great for discussions this season. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know your teams. Maybe neither team is great, you know, in which case we're back to the drawing board. But thank you very much for listening. If you are new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. Check out some different videos that will be on the screen right about now of different striker and midfielder options, and I will see you in the next one.